This is Women Road Warriors with Shelley Johnson and Kathy Tuccaro. From the corporate office to the cab of a truck, they're here to inspire and empower women in all professions. So gear down, sit back, and enjoy.
Welcome. We're an award-winning show dedicated to empowering women in every profession through inspiring stories and expert insights. No topic is off limits on our show. We power women on the road to success with expert and celebrity interviews and information you need. I'm Shelley.
And I'm Kathy.
Ever wonder what the challenges are to even qualify for the Olympics, let alone compete? What about some of our favorite women athletes? What did they go through to get there? They sure have had their share of challenges over the years. How did they overcome and stay focused? What these athletes have learned to meet their goals are attributes everyone can use to succeed. They're things like confidence, dedication, perseverance, and never quitting, no matter what. Flamebearers is a global storytelling platform that tells the stories of resilient women Olympians and Paralympians. Their interviews with famous athletes inspire people the world over to drive change for themselves, in their connections with others, and in their communities. We have Jamie Mittelman, CEO of Flamebearers, with us to tell us more. Thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you for having me. I am so excited to be here.
Woohoo! Welcome. Welcome.
Absolutely. Oh my gosh. I want to say that what you're doing is so inspiring to so many people. And our show's all about that, inspiring and empowering women. Your stories do that. I see you're the first media company to do this. You've interviewed some tremendous champions from all the competitive sports. How did all of this get started? What's your background, and what brought you to start Flamebearers?
Absolutely. So growing up, I was an athlete. Sports was a massive part of my life. I do not share that when I'm working with literally the best athletes in the world. But personally, I was a 3-season athlete in high school. I was a collegiate athlete briefly. And essentially, sport played a massive role in terms of teaching me who I am and what I can be. And then professionally, I have about a decade of experience in the media world. I have a background managing a $30 million media portfolio on behalf of the conglomerate between Yahoo and AOL and TechCrunch for their charitable causes. And then I went back to graduate school. I got an MBA from Dartmouth and an master's in policy from Harvard. And it was there that I decided to start my own media company. The thread through all of this is that I have always been passionate about working with women and girls, and sport was always the thing that made me tick. So that's what brought me to where I am today.
You're amazing. Yeah, you really are. I would
say that.
Our show's Women Road Warriors. I'd say you're a warrior, no doubt about it.
Yeah, holy smokes.
So,
thank you.
You get to talk to some amazing people. And, when you think about it, Olympic and Paralympic athletes work so hard, starting at a young age, to tell their stories. It's fascinating. Not only do they have to have talent, but it requires a ton of work, not to mention money. And there's no guarantee these people are going to make the cut. They truly have to be resilient. Is that what your story is about? To strive higher no matter what?
Exactly. So the theme throughout all of our stories, you nailed it, is resilience. It's showing who these women are. We are not doing sports reporting. We're not talking about, the upcoming match, who is playing who. We're focusing on who these women are and what makes them tick, with the through line being how everyone can channel and tune into their inner Olympian. So we really believe that everyone has access to and has the potential to find the traits that make these athletes literally the best in the world, that those are attributes that you can have and you can embody, whether or not you've ever picked up a basketball or kicked a soccer ball.
That's amazing. I've always looked at, when I've watched the Olympics, thinking what these people are doing. It's so intricate, it's so challenging, and to stay focused when you have all these people watching you.
Right.
I've been a performer, and stage fright, it's a real thing. Certainly athletes have got to be a little bit intimidated too, and to be able to just go within and do what they do, and to heck with all of the obstacles and any of the distractions.
Absolutely. It's an incredible skill set that every elite athlete has focused on and has paid attention to. I was just talking to, her name is Chelsea Edgehill. She is Guyana's first ever table tennis Olympian. And she's focusing right now on grounding and centering herself, because as the first ever Olympian from her country, she's making national headlines every day. And she has to spend a lot of time literally just grounding herself and staying focused. So that's absolutely something that I think we don't see or hear about on TV, but is paramount to making sure that these athletes are able to show up and be successful.
Yeah, because you could be doing great when you're working out and you're practicing, but when you actually get to the competition, to be able to maintain that, because
absolutely,
the environment's different, everything's different, and that can throw you off.
Absolutely, you have fans shouting for you, heckling against you. You have the media snapping photos, videos in your face. It's incredibly different than practicing on a quiet day by yourself. So dramatically different.
A lot of pressure.
Oh, a lot of pressure.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Pressure. Oh my.
Yeah.
And when you think about it, to be able to pull from that inner strength, I mean, this is something everyone could learn from. Because we all have pressure, different kinds, to be able to be your best no matter what, in spite of everything.
That's exactly right. And I think that ability to tune out everyone but yourself and your body and your thoughts and your feelings, I think is one of the biggest differentiators from those on the top and other elite athletes.
Now, I'm going to share something that's it's kind of like, well, kind of not, sort of not really, but I can kind of understand. When I was training on the biggest dozer in the world, it's very, very demanding, very challenging. And not everybody makes it. This thing is like mother, like it's so big. And I was kind of failing. So they put me on a trial run. They said, we're going to give you 3 days. And if you can't achieve all these points that we're going to give you, then we're going to pull you off training. Okay. And so I was really stressed about that. So the 3 days, they ended up, there was about 12 trainers, these top-notch trainers watching me, watching my every single move, every flick of the blade, everything that I was doing. Am I going too fast? Am I going too slow? So the pressure was mounting, because this is something I really wanted to do. It's a personal challenge. I'm 54 and I'm learning to operate this thing. So what I did to help myself get over that, I said, okay, you know what? We're just going to forget that there's 100 people watching your every move. And because it's all computerized, they can tell exactly through the computer how many times you tap the throttle and the brakes and everything. They know everything, basically. So instead of focusing on that and failing, because had I done that, I would have become too self-conscious. I said, you know what, Kath, you got these 3 days. You are going to enjoy this. You are going to show them, do your best, be your best, and don't worry about whether or not you're going to pass or fail. As long as you're having fun, as long as you're enjoying it, and know that you are doing your best, regardless of what they think. Mm-hmm. And it turned out that after my 3 days at 4:00, they pulled me off the dozer. And I said, well, if this is the last day I'm on a dozer, then I had a good time, and I'm confident in my abilities, that I did good. And I'm proud of myself, regardless of what anybody else thinks. I don't need their approval. And when I went into the office, the head trainer steps out and he stands up and he shakes my hand. He says, in all my years of doing this, I have never seen anybody turn around that fast and do as good as you did. My God, congratulations. I don't know what worked for you, but whatever you did, keep doing it.
That's so awesome. Yeah.
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 And the biggest thing, I let out a whoop, right? Because the biggest accomplishment is that everybody expected me to fail. Everybody. And I'm in a man's world to boot, right? So that was the I think one of the proudest moments I've ever had is that I showed them, right? Because they all expected the failure, and reality, I went above and beyond. And so,
Way to go. I love to
So
hear.
I don't know how that relates with the Olympic training, but the focus.
Yeah.
Totally.
Jamie, would you say that that's something that athletes do?
I would say absolutely. And Kathy, what I've found is that so many athletes have similar coping mechanisms. That said, there are a group of athletes, and everyone copes with pressure in such a different way. Some thrive off of it. Some athletes love to look up into the stands and see thousands and 10,000s of people cheering them, yelling their name. And that actually excites them and fuels them. For you and for other athletes, it sounds like you have to just pretend you're doing your own thing. You're doing it for you, and that's their coping mechanism. But yes, I've heard both of those, and they both, I think the key is finding what works for you.
That's true. I used a bit of comedy too, because at one point when I was feeling a bit stressed, I got on the radio. I said, anybody want popcorn to watch a show?
Right. Absolutely. Yeah. And then humor is a great way to take the stress off. Just level it out, ground yourself. Absolutely. Other things that I've heard athletes do are journaling before their competition. I have another athlete who's an artist, and before she goes out, she actually goes into her own space and draws. Another one, a lot of them use breathing techniques. They sit down and they focus on their breathing. It's almost meditative. Many athletes have certain music that they listen to before they just jump in the pool or walk out onto the field. So every athlete kind of has their own rituals, their superstitions, what works for them. I think the challenge is navigating to figure out what works for you.
Makes sense. And these are things people who aren't athletes can use, because we all get in situations where we're uncomfortable, and to be able to still have a presence of mind and be ourselves and be our best. Sometimes it's daunting to do that.
It's incredibly daunting, 100%. So I mentioned that I used to play sports. I later became a certified yoga instructor, and that was incredibly helpful for me because the breathing that I mentioned, that became one of my coping mechanisms. Before I go out and before I speak publicly, if I'm going to speak to a large audience, I do my breathing. And that is what grounds me. It's an inward meditation that allows me to center myself and remind myself that, hey, Jamie, this is why you're doing this.
It keeps your body from going into fight flight.
That too.
Right. It's like, I don't have a big bear chasing me. Come on, let's focus.
Exactly. Life is pretty darn good.
Stay tuned for more of Women Road Warriors coming up.
Dean Michael, the tax doctor here. I have one question for you. Do you want to stop worrying about the IRS? If the answer is yes, then look no further. I've been around for years. I've helped countless people across the country, and my success rate speaks for itself. So now you know where to find good, honest help with your tax problems. What are you waiting for? If you owe more than $10,000 to the IRS or haven't filed in years, call me now at 888-557-4020 or go to mytaxhelpmd.com for a free consultation and get your life back.
Industry movement Trucking Moves America Forward is telling the story of the industry. Our safety champions, the women of trucking, independent contractors, the next generation of truckers, and more. Help us promote the best of our industry. Share your story and what you love about trucking. Share images of a moment you're proud of. And join us on social media. Learn more at truckingmovesamerica.com.
Welcome back to Women Road Warriors with Shelley Johnson and Kathy Tuccaro.
If you're enjoying this informative episode of Women Road Warriors, I wanted to mention Kathy and I explore all kinds of topics that will power you on the road to success. We feature a lot of expert interviews. Plus, we feature celebrities and women who've been trailblazers. Please check out our podcast at womenroadwarriors.com and click on our episodes page. We're also available wherever you listen to podcasts, on all the major podcast channels like Spotify, Apple, YouTube, Amazon Music, Audible, you name it. Check us out and bookmark our podcast. Also, don't forget to follow us on social media. We're on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, Pinterest, LinkedIn, YouTube, and other sites. And tell others about us. We want to help as many women as possible. Jamie Mittelman is the founder of the world's first media and content company that celebrates the stories of the best women athletes. Jamie's interest in athletics and desire to inspire others led her to creating Flamebearers, where she interviews famous women Olympians and Paralympians. The theme through all of the athletes' stories is resilience and striving higher no matter the obstacles. These are stories about who these women are and how everyone can channel into their own inner Olympian. These are attributes we can all have, whether you've kicked a soccer ball or participated in sports or not. These are valuable takeaways for everyone to succeed in life. Jamie? So, when you think about it, women have had to work harder just to be included in the Olympics. I was doing a little bit of research, and I see women didn't compete in the Olympic Games until 1900 in Paris.
Crazy.
There were 22 women in 5 sports, and that included tennis, sailing, croquet, golf, and equestrianism. And those were probably considered the more ladylike sports at the time.
Correct.
Ladylike.
Right. and I'm sure when the ladies were riding the horses, they had to do it side saddle because, they were wearing skirts or whatever else.
Prim and proper.
Yes, exactly. So that's an additional challenge that women have had just to get into the Olympics and to be considered a respectable athlete in a lot of the same sports that men have.
Absolutely. It's so crazy to me that Paris this coming summer is the first Olympics with gender parity in history. There has never been a game since 1900 when women were allowed to start competing in those 5 ladylike sports, if you will, where there's like equal numbers of men and women. This is the first games in 2024. So yes, we are making progress, but there's still a lot that needs to be done. If we take a step back and look at the general sports media landscape outside of the Olympics, sports media I call it a total misnomer. 85% of that goes to men.
Yep.
So it's really just male sports coverage. Let's call a spade a spade. If only 15% of that is going to women, that's men's sports coverage. And then of the 15% of women, 15% of media coverage that is going to women, it goes to a very narrow group of women. Historically, soccer players and basketball players from the global north who look a certain way, who carry themselves in certain traditionally accepted manners. So the aperture of who gets covered and how they get covered can be widened. And that is what we're trying to do, because like you, we believe that it's hard to be what you can't see or hear. And we're trying to provide role models from all walks of life. So girls and boys have role models who they can look up to at the highest echelons of women's sports. And they can say, yeah, I can do it. She's doing it, so I can do it too.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think the pushback is on it, or the resistance to maybe not cover women's sports as much?
I think there's a couple different things here. So there's definitely some societal values that we have to change. There's a prioritization of men's sports over women's sports because the things I hear all the time: men are faster, stronger, more exciting. Men can dunk in the NBA. Women usually don't. Those are the lines of things that I'm normally hearing. Mm-hmm. What I say to that is, why are we comparing women's sports to men's sports? Women's sports are amazing on our own.
Yeah.
Let's stop using the men's sports as the default comparison. I think that there's also historically not been a lot of dollars that have been put towards this. And we're seeing that change. We are seeing right now with the monetization of sports teams and leagues going through the roof this past year, with the San Diego Wave being sold for incredible, massive sums of money, that the money is now there. And that is going to drive sponsorship. And then that's going to, in turn, fuel the flywheel to drive more attendance, to drive more fans. The last point that I always like to mention is that it takes time to build a fan base. I think that this is not something that I used to be aware of, but I grew up going to Boston Red Sox games, so I'm a Red Sox fan. And what we're seeing now is we're seeing Title IX mothers and grandmothers who grew up, in Title IX, bringing their children and their grandchildren to women's sports games. And that matters because those kids are now growing up as NWSL fans, as professional hockey league fans for the women's side. And that means that they're going to be fans for life, likely.
Oh, sure.
And that matters because it takes time for people to become invested in teams and players. And I think what we're seeing that investment come in spades. But yes, it takes time for people to feel attachment to certain teams and leagues. But we're getting there.
Title IX was a huge, huge thing for women in schools, for girls, because it was typically all guys doing stuff. I mean, gymnastics, it was originally a man's sport. They were gymnasts. And,
absolutely,
with Title IX, all of a sudden, girls and women could start competing.
Absolutely. It was a complete game changer for women's sports and for sports in general. I think that we owe so much to that piece of legislation that has, and the trailblazers who literally blazed the trails for where we are today.
Oh, gosh, yes. You're talking on your show, in your program, to some serious trailblazers, modern ones.
Yes.
Who are some of the people our listeners might know who you've talked to, and what have they said? I mean, have they talked about their obstacles and some of the things that they've had to rise above just because they're female?
Absolutely. So we've worked with over 130 Olympians and Paralympians from, I believe we're up to 45 different countries, ranging from household names like a Sue Bird or a Caster Semenya or a Becky Sauerbrunn, to more unsung local legends. Again, all Olympians and Paralympians, but from countries where there may not be the systemic infrastructure for sports, or where women in sports are not usually celebrated, like Afghanistan, for example. So yeah, we've worked with quite a wide range of athletes, and it's so hard because the way we view our work is we try to produce every athlete's single favorite piece on her that they've ever done. But yes, they do share their struggles and their ups and their downs. We worked with Deja Young-Craddock, who is a Paralympic gold medalist, and she talked to us about postpartum and how she was struggling with her mental health. And that was incredible to hear her as a decorated Paralympian say, yes, I am really struggling right now. And I know there are millions of other people going through this. And I want to be a light, a source of inspiration to say that, hey, yeah, we need to talk about this too.
For those who are not familiar, what is Paralympian?
Such a good question. This is a source of massive confusion. The Paralympics is literally para or parallel to the Olympics. A lot of times people think it means paralyzed, paraplegic. Para literally means parallel to. And it is the version of the Olympics for people with physical disabilities. So different than the Special Olympics, it's for people with different physical disabilities, and there's classifications based on the level of physical disability that you have. And when it's so important that we give those athletes the coverage, the equal coverage that we give Olympians, because we look at that 15% of women, pretty much 100% of that goes to able-bodied athletes.
That's amazing.
That is. Wow.
Stay tuned for more of Women Road Warriors coming up.
Dean Michael, the tax doctor here. I have one question for you. Do you want to stop worrying about the IRS? If the answer is yes, then look no further. I've been around for years. I've helped countless people across the country, and my success rate speaks for itself. So now you know where to find good, honest help with your tax problems. What are you waiting for? If you owe more than $10,000 to the IRS or haven't filed in years, call me now at 888-557-4020 or go to mytaxhelpmd.com for a free consultation and get your life back.
Industry movement Trucking Moves America Forward is telling the story of the industry. Our safety champions, the women of trucking, independent contractors, the next generation of truckers, and more. Help us promote the best of our industry. Share your story and what you love about trucking. Share images of a moment you're proud of. And join us on social media. Learn more at truckingmovesamerica.com.
Welcome back to Women Road Warriors with Shelley Johnson and Kathy Tuccaro.
The ability to be your best, no matter what, and tune out everyone who may not be a champion for you are just two of the attributes of empowerment that women athletes possess. Jamie Mittelman's interviews on Flamebearers with women Olympians and Paralympians inspire people the world over with messages of resilience, never quitting, and connecting with our own champions to help us win in life. Jamie talks about the attributes women champions harness and the obstacles and barriers they face just because they're women. Her interviews with women athletes dispel the myths and empower and inspire women to get the recognition they deserve and aspire to new heights. The stories also give girls role models and perspectives they never had before. You know, you've got to get so inspired, Jamie, talking to these ladies because the characteristics they have, I would be in so much awe of what they do. I mean, they're brilliant,
Absolutely. It is my why. It's what gets me up every morning. It's what got me through COVID. These ladies, these women are such badasses, such bosses who are such fixtures of strength and determination and such incredible role models. What's so interesting is at the end of the day, though, they're human, they're people, they're just like you and me. And I think what's been one of the greatest gifts for me is being privy to that, is being able to create a space where someone like Deja can say, hey, Jamie, I really want to talk about postpartum because I feel comfortable with you. And I know that you're going to treat my story gently and with the care and respect that I actually would like the situation to be addressed with.
You have the empathy as opposed to, say, a guy who's interviewing who has no clue what that is,
Exactly. Or a journalist coming in with their own narrative that they want to push.
Oh, sure.
Which is very much the inverse of what we do, where we say, we're going to go to bat for you and whatever you care about. So you tell us, Deja, what you want to focus on, and we'll do that.
Which is excellent.
Yeah, not me going in saying, okay, you're going to talk about A, B, and C. And she's like, oh, I don't really want to talk about that.
Right.
So it's starting from a place of mutual trust and understanding.
And that creates real conversations that are so good for everyone to hear. And you discover things that wouldn't normally be discovered, and that's where people have wonderful takeaways listening to these interviews that they can apply to their own lives.
Exactly. 100%.
So could you share maybe a couple of standout interviews that come to your mind and maybe some of the stories and some of the things you took away from those interviews?
Oh boy, that's a tough one. Absolutely. So I was going to call out Masomah Alizada. Masomah is from Afghanistan. She is a cyclist. She is coming up to her second Olympics, and she is the head or the leader of the refugee team. Now, Masomah grew up cycling dressed up as a man because in Kabul, Afghanistan, you couldn't bike ride as a woman. So she would go out biking with a man in front of her, a man behind her. And if cars would pass her, they would realize she's a woman. They would throw things at her. They would insult her. And what was so striking for me about this is beyond her resilience, beyond her drive and dedication, because her dream was always to compete in the Tour de France for women and to compete in the Olympics, is that she is now using her platform to talk about women in Afghanistan today, and specifically what is happening under Taliban rule. And she's using her power to essentially support women back home in Afghanistan.
Enact change. That's terrific.
That's amazing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Can you imagine like doing that? Like the danger she
Yeah.
put herself in? Like
Yeah.
she could
Day in and day
yeah.
out. Absolutely.
She could have gotten killed easily.
Oh, yeah. So, I mean,
Absolutely.
she really had to have tremendous
Wow.
courage just to do what she wanted to do. I mean, she had the challenges of building her skill set and endurance and all of that, but then she had to worry about being
Wow.
hurt, killed, or something else.
Stoned to death. Like, it's
yeah.
Exactly. It's a level of privilege that, I myself have never had to think about. I hop on a bike, I walk outside, I want to go for a run, I do it. That is not something that, in Boston, Massachusetts, I have ever questioned. And it is, something that after hearing her story, I was like, wow, you know what? I'm pretty darn lucky.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there are areas of the world that persecute and marginalize women terribly. And violence against women is acceptable too.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. So bravo to her to be making the change. I mean, she is out in front and she's respected and people are going to listen. And that's the kind of thing, it's paying it forward, isn't it?
Absolutely. And that's what she's all about. And I think that's what so many women are about, is saying, here's where I am today. Let's make sure, yes, I may be the first. I'm not going to be the last.
I love this.
Yep.
So any other athletes you could share some tidbits? Because I'm sure that people are going to say, I want to listen, but I want to hear maybe some things that Jamie discovered talking to these ladies.
Sure. Let me give another shout out to Caster Semenya. Now, Caster is a 2-time Olympic gold medalist. She's a 3-time world champion in the 800 meters from South Africa. Now, Caster has actually been barred from competing for about the last decade. Caster, born a woman, identifies as a woman. She's not a part of the trans conversation at all. She was born with naturally high testosterone levels. So there is a quote unquote average range of testosterone that many women fall into. Caster was born, as are many other athletes, with different levels that lay outside of that. So Caster has been unable to compete. I was able to sit down with Caster about a month and a half ago, right before she went to court with the European High Court of Human Rights. She has been appealing a decision that basically says that it is her human right to compete in her natural body. And we are waiting on that court case decision, which is going to be absolutely monumental for the history of track and field. It's going to dictate who can run and who has the right to decide who's female.
So because her testosterone levels are higher than normal, they're saying, no, you don't qualify, even though she's a biological woman.
Correct.
Wow.
Wow. Speechless.
Yeah.
Wow.
Who decides who's a woman?
Right?
Yeah,
Who gets to decide that, and what constitutes a woman? Yeah.
Oh my
exactly.
God.
Crazy.
Well, there's so many rules they have, and they're constantly being tested, aren't they, when they're competing too, for any kind of steroids and that sort of thing? And
absolutely, yeah. What they don't tell you is only the women are being tested for gender stuff. So the
really,
men,
I didn't know that.
Oh yeah,
elaborate. I didn't know that. Tell us more.
Absolutely. So, for example, there's no sex testing, gender testing for the men. So the fear is that oh my gosh, a man is disguising himself as a woman to get an advantage. They're not afraid of anyone going the other way. So yes, men are tested for doping, for all that same stuff. But what they're testing for with the gender stuff is to make sure, they're trying to make sure that that there's an equal playing field for women and girls. That is the underlying assumption there. But it is crazy that the assumption that a natural born man would have obviously a leg up on a natural born woman. So that's why they do not test the other way.
Interesting. You'd think that they do it both ways. I mean, let's just level the playing field. If you're going to test one group, test the other.
Test them all. Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yep.
I mean, that's parity. And that makes sense. And in the 21st century, why have a different set of standards in testing?
Agreed. They're not there yet. Hopefully one day soon.
So what are some of the messages from the athletes you've talked to on the challenges that still exist for women athletes?
There's so many different ones. The first that I continuously hear is that we need pay equity. We need to be paid. So many of these elite athletes have secondary, have tertiary jobs. And the reason they do that is because they can't make a living off of their professional job. So that's the first one. And that's crazy to hear. So many people assume that you're a professional athlete, you're loaded, you're gonna be a millionaire. That is absolutely not the case. Yes, there are the exceptions. There's the Caitlin Clark, the Alex Morgan, who are above and beyond, and they're in the 0.001%. That is not the case of the majority of women athletes. I would also say that so many women athletes today, and obviously, please take these with a grain of salt. I can't speak for them, but one thing that I have heard is that they want to be role models for future generations. So many different athletes didn't have women in sport role models growing up, and they are dead set on being that for the future. So many women in sport at the highest levels really take that role seriously and say that they want to be an inspiration and a role model for future generations. And that can be seen in how many women athletes are outspoken about social issues. A lot of women athletes, as opposed to male athletes, talk about societal issues that male athletes in general stay away from, which is really interesting to see. We see in the WNBA people being incredibly outspoken about race, about sexuality, about pay equity, versus in the NBA, those players are not usually talking about those things, but it's commonplace in women's sports leagues, if you will.
Right.
Something else that I frequently heard is that they got there with the support of a village. That yes, on TV, you're going to see them standing on the podium, but really what they're thinking about in their minds is their parents, their siblings, their coaches, their teammates, the people who picked them up when they were kicked down, who drove them to practice when they were younger, who gave them the extra buck to buy that new pair of cleats or shoes. Katarina Roxon of Canada told me when she was standing on the podium in the Paralympics that she envisioned her family all around her because they went to bat for her when she was all alone.
And that's such an important thing to have, a village. We all need champions, and so many of us coming up may not have that. That's where having someone you can look up to, having the ability to see somebody who looks like you or who you're going to become in a particular sport, it inspires a child. And this kind of inspiration is so important, especially if they're in an abusive situation. It gives them hope. Children can put themselves in another place and they have something to believe in, some hope in the future. So that's important. And then when you think about it, society needs to also be a village to champion others. And I don't think we're good at doing that.
I don't either. Yeah. And I think in general, so many people have a scarcity mindset that there's only so much to go around, that women have to, push each other down in order for them to get higher. And I think that's dead wrong. I think we need to move towards an abundance mindset where I lift you up, you lift me up, all boats rise together.
Amen. Well, that's what this show is about, empowering women. And that means, we're a village. We empower each other. We can't do it alone. No man or no woman is an island.
Exactly.
And some of it probably is societal, where we're kind of raised as little girls to be jealous. Oh, look, she's pretty. This kind of stuff still goes on. And you're doing comparisons all the time.
Exactly. And that's what we have to move away from. Is it's not why are women's sports lower or X than men's sports, or why is she A, B, or C? It's wow, look at that awesome person. Period.
Yeah. And that's one thing I was taught by my mom, was to admire people, not to be jealous. She would say,
a difference.
She would say, oh, well, you like what they're doing and you want to do that? Figure out how you can. Don't be jealous of them. Yep.
I love that.
Yeah,
me too.
Because human beings working together, that's powerful. Working against each other, not so much.
I totally agree.
And in the performance industry and in the things I've done, I've encountered women who have been just downright nasty and trying to undermine. It's like, really? Get over yourself. And you see them coming, but it's like, okay, so you have so little confidence in your own ability that you're trying to undermine me. Really?
Right.
Yeah.
It's sad. It is downright sad, and we can do so much better.
Yeah. And that's definitely something that the athletes, I'm sure, are still, dealing with other women athletes. And if they work as a group, think how many sponsors and people they could get rather than the infighting.
Exactly. That's 100% correct. And we're seeing that. We're seeing that happen.
Well, and you with your stories, you're bringing a lot of this sort of thing to the forefront, and you're bringing the human element to listeners about the athletes. They're real people. They go through the same kinds of things and the same kind of issues that other women do, maybe in a different way. But I mean, it's all part of being human.
Absolutely. And I think that is one of the biggest common misconceptions about elite athletes is so many of them feel like they're put up on this pedestal and they're not given the space to be human anymore. Yeah. People think of them as robots. And it's like, no. There are up days. There are down days. In order to be the best in the world, I have to suck sometimes. And that makes me better.
I love what you're doing.
I love what you're doing too, Jamie. I was gonna say, I hate it when I suck, but I take a step back and go, okay, I will do it differently. And you have to remind yourself, I'm a perfectionist, so I do kind of pound on myself a lot, and I have to talk myself out of it. It's like, okay, you're human, Shelley. Last time you checked, you weren't this divine person. You are a human being, and you are not omnipotent, omniscient, or perfect in any way. You can try, you can get close,
Absolutely. And every step that Rioni Page, who's a world champion trampolinist, that trampolining is an Olympic sport, said, every time I failed, I thought that meant I was getting further away from my goal. What I realize now is that every time I failed, that brought me closer to winning.
Yep.
That is so true.
That's powerful. Jamie, where do people find your site? Because these stories are inspiring to everybody. I mean, they
need to be heard.
Yes, they do. It's great for women's sports, for women, and it's also going to inspire people in their own lives, maybe to take some of that perspective and internalize it and be better themselves.
Totally. You can find us at Flamebearers.com. So flame as in the thing in the Olympic torch, and then bearers as in the people who bear the flame. Flamebearers.com. You can also watch every single interview on our YouTube channel. If you don't want to watch, if you are more of a podcast person, you can find all of these interviews on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you get your podcasts. You can also follow us on social media for behind the scenes coverage. Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, X, though I still call it Twitter, LinkedIn, whatever platform you're on.
Excellent. Jamie, this has been so inspiring. I'm so glad we've had you on the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
Wow.
Great messages for our listeners. Thank you, Jamie. This has been an honor having you.
Thank you both for having me. I absolutely love what you're doing. I love your show, and we all rise together. Let's do it.
That's right. Let's rise to new heights. Let's go to the moon and Mars and wherever the heck we want to go, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, I love this. Thank you, Jamie. We hope you've enjoyed this latest episode. And if you want to hear more episodes of Women Road Warriors or learn more about our show, be sure to check out womenroadwarriors.com. And please follow us on social media. And don't forget to subscribe to our podcast. On our website, we also have a selection of podcasts just for women. There are a series of podcasts from different podcasters. So if you're in the mood for women's podcasts, just click the Power Network tab on womenroadwarriors.com. You'll have a variety of shows to listen to anytime you want to. Podcasts made for women. Women Road Warriors is on all the major podcast channels like Apple, Spotify, Amazon, Audible, YouTube, and others. So check us out, and please follow us wherever you listen to podcasts. Thanks for listening.
You've been listening to Women Road Warriors with Shelley Johnson and Kathy Tuccaro. If you want to be a guest on the show or have a topic or feedback, email us at sjohnson@womenroadwarriors.com.